Hi, folks. Thrilled to be here with you today, talking about a topic that has become really both professionally and personally a total passion of mine. And like many of you, it's been a circuitous route that landed me here today. I'm gonna go back one. I worked in DNA synthesis and fiber optics and auto salvage. Even was a sushi chef for a little while, and didn't really have things get like properly weird until I met my co-founder Eric Gradman. We're both engineers, computer science, electrical, robotics, and in about 2008. We were pretty frustrated with what we were doing at work and just started meeting up nights and weekends to collaborate making new kinds of interactive art. It was a great time for tech. Stuff was getting a lot easier to use, and whether it was cheap sensors or microcontrollers or computer vision, there was a lot of capability you could tap into and have a working project by the end of the evening. And we were really inspired by two things. Michael Douglas and The Game, and I can't see many of you, but a lot of you seen this movie. If you haven't, you must go see it. Great old movie where the game really goes all around the world, following Michael Douglas. A lot of the time he doesn't like it so much, but really fantastic. And the original version of Westworld, if you ever saw the Yul Brynner version, incredible, amusement parks surrounding you in 3 different lands. And both of those things were really special to us because they were such immersive worlds. They were things that it wasn't just you controlling the game with your thumbs. You were part of the action. You were in the action, having to tap on all of your sorry, out of position. And so we explored lots of places. And funny enough, in building this talk, I went back and did some research. We built what now looks like an escape game. Of course, in 2010, we didn't have any idea how to talk about that thing. And so we were like, hey, it's this immersive adventure. And I looked at some of the language we used. It's an immersive spy adventure played at a physical location, and convincing people that it was physical. You had to go to a place was such a concept we were really struggling with. A hybrid between a movie, a video game, and a scavenger hunt. We just had we didn't have a lot of language to be able to tap into. It was fun. It didn't turn into the wonderful rage that is escape rooms now. But it was, we had our girlfriends at the time as these kind of Charlie's Angels style detectives that were giving you clues. You had to get through a room of laser beams and solve all these different kinds of puzzles in order to prove that you had the mettle to be a spy. And then we were like, gosh, this physical location stuff, it's really, hard to scale. Well, everybody's got a smartphone in their pocket. What if we overlaid an experience on the world? We'll use their GPS. We'll overlay a bunch of different experiences, and we'll call it NeoQuest. We actually did a couple of different ones in 2011. This didn't really work either. This one of them you were assigned to a team, and a red or a blue or different kinds of teams. And everywhere you went, you were taking over a territory for your team. So interesting, but we were like, gosh, it's really hard to get people to go out of their house to go and do an experience. We tried another version where you were trying to solve different kinds of collect fruit, and the fruits had various rarities, all with a distribution, algorithmic distribution over the world, yeah, that didn't really work much either. So we thought, hey, Rock Band is awesome. Space Battle is awesome. Let's do Rock Band for Space Battle. It'll be a multiplayer game, 3-on-3. One person's a pilot, a gunner, and a navigator. Another person, pilot, gunner, navigator. I mean, we were so excited about this thing. Spent 30 days building it. 2 computers, network communication, 2 projectors, 4 displays. Oh my God. We install it, and nobody can play it. It was like so complicated. Flying around in 3D space is so not intuitive. It was really, so we were throwing a lot of stuff against the wall, learning a lot, but we were still sort of like, gosh, we don't really know what it is, where we're going to play in this space. But we love out-of-home entertainment, and we love all this new technology. And so we started getting a lot of contract work. And so we formed it into a real company called Two Bit Circus. Got a bunch of our favorite nerds together and started collaborating more and more, building lots of immersive experiences. We did an escape room for Warner Brothers to help them launch The Flash. It was in a big traveling truck. We took it around the country. You know, a lot of fun. You got to feel what it was like to be a superhero, compare yourself against The Flash. We helped Dave & Buster's explore virtual reality. At the time, Oculus had just launched. They wanted to know really fundamental operational things. How long do people want to do it? Do they care about the cleanliness? You know, how much are they willing to pay? You know, interesting things. No, they don't care about the cleanliness. But it was really, you know, we took, you know, we smashed a game into the headset with these special graphics drivers, you know, computer-controlled fans, as many different things as we could add into it in order to be able to really feel what's it like to put the public through virtual reality, and learned pretty quickly that it's terrible. We built our own cameras, 360 cameras, wrote our own stitching software, strapped them to a race car for IndyCar, and drove it around so you could feel what it was like to be in an Indy car. Sports was really a perfect application for this. It's really, we're all very familiar with watching the game. What's it like to be the athlete? So we did, for the Super Bowl, what it's like to run the touchdown pass. You know, my favorite thing about this is we're a bunch of nerds that don't like sports. You know, we had all of this opportunity to be in the locker room where people would be like, oh my God, this person, and we're sort of like, what game is this again? So ridiculous. But this thing, you know, lots of immersion, not only the 360 headset, but those black plates would vibrate. You know, the acoustics were all coming through that big helmet. So really a neat immersive experience. Same for the Olympics. What's it like to dive off the high dive? What's it like to be in the room, in the locker room with them on training days and whatnot? We even made a cloud that rains tequila. We put this in in Berlin in the wintertime, and the message was, hey, it's raining in Berlin, it's raining tequila in Mexico. So funny. It's ridiculous. So we kept, you know, playing around with lots of different stuff. You know, whether it was virtual reality or augmented reality, you know, physical installation was really something we loved. And little did we know, we were tapping into a number of different trends. You know, the first of those being, consumers want experiences, right? They want immersive things, or, you know, over things, right? Amazon just delivered all your stuff. You know, what should we do with that free time? And there was all sorts of you know, research coming out there. You know, Mark Cuban famously invested millions of dollars into a haunted house, you know, on Shark Tank. JWT, the big ad agency, if you don't track their trend deck, I highly recommend it. They do it every year. And you know, as early as 2014, they were talking about immersive experiences being a real trend, and then particularly with millennials, you know, this idea of like, hey, we don't care about owning stuff. We just want to, you know, be a part of interesting new experiences. Second one. Retail is changing a lot. You've probably heard a lot about this. I've spent a ton of time this last 6 months meeting with just about every major mall REIT in the United States, Simon, Westfield, Macerich, AAC, all of those. And you know, they are changing their tenant mix 100%. You know, most of them skewed really heavily retail, and they're now moving much more food, beverage, and entertainment. One of the things really fascinating, they see the writing on the wall, right? The traditional anchor tenant, those big box retailers, those department stores are not doing their job. And the reality is that their model is based on the anchor tenant, the big box and the movie theater, brings traffic into the mall, and they will really give great, aggressive, you know, really wonderful deals to those groups in order to be able to charge a lot of money to Foot Locker and the Starbucks. But if the mall anchor is not doing their job, the REITs are literally paying to get them out of there so that they can put new things that actually bring people into those facilities. And so they're really seeing that, hey, the physical retail model is broken. We need new things to bring people and really, you know, get them into the space. And you know, for me, retail should require your body. Right? If the stuff, Amazon's gonna be able to deliver all the other things. The stuff that requires your body, where you physically have to be there to eat the burger, you physically have to be there to be on the Soul Cycle. You know, and entertainment is a great example of that. But then also, you know, work, learning, these are things where you physically have to be there in order to be a part of it. So real interesting shift there. And then the last one, engagement is interactive. You know, we have so much passive entertainment and to really capture people's imaginations, getting them really engaged. You've got to give them the ability to help control the narrative. And I just love this picture. This went viral. The bored millennials, right? And this is so bad. They're at a state fair. They're at a state fair, and they're just like, oh my God. This is so terrible, but it's really interesting. This is a lot of this is traditionally a very passive experience. How to really level up this experience. So if you think about the trend in entertainment, it's about increasing your immersion. A book, you do all the imagining, and you're this passive observer of the narrative. A movie, a lot of the imagining's been done for you, and you're going to just sit there and watch. A video game gives you some control, right? You now can control with your thumbs, or maybe if you've got a Wii or a Kinect, you can kind of dance around in front of the screen. VR, awesome. All of a sudden, you can now control the camera angle, and we're going to really great lengths to recreate tracking your feet if you want to walk, and giving you lots of haptic effects so you can really recreate all the other senses beyond just sight and sound. But the most immersive thing? Real life. It's awesome. Yeah, so incredible, really immersive, so much. It's why we're all physically here today and not watching this, right? And it'll be fun to be able to watch it later. There's a place for video, to be sure, but to be able to be physically in the room is the highest resolution experience. You've got all of your senses. Everything is involved, and that's really powerful for particularly this kind of new storytelling where we want lasting impact on people's brains. Whatever your message is, you want to be able to really, deliver that in a strong way. Real life is the best way. So if a traditional form was very passive, consumer of media, we really believe in this sort of very active version where if you're not the creator, you're at least the co-creator. You're helping to control your experience and be part of that. Be part of that experience. Okay, so quick reminder: experiences over things. Retail's changing a lot, and engagement really is got to be interactive. Okay, so there's a lot of terms floating around. You've probably heard a bunch of these, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and they've been around for a little bit too. There was a bunch, alternate reality games, term you maybe haven't heard in a while. Immersive theater is totally awesome. So much great exploration in this domain. Escape games, and an older term, transmedia. Folks have been exploring this space for a while without really, knowing exactly what it is we're going to call this new level of storytelling, this new style of immersion. I really like the term narrative reality, the idea that it's, hey, this is your reality, but we've overlaid a new narrative on top of it, something that's not part of your normal life necessarily, but is is going to involve as much of that immersion that you're used to as possible. So let's talk a little bit more about immersion. My friend Ryan Lukens talks about the difference between drinking a glass of water and the picture of the glass of water, right? To actually drink the glass of water, which actually sounds really great right now, is a really, it'd be hard for me to convince you of what it's like until you actually do it. And that is a really powerful thing, because if we're talking about making lasting memories, the more of your senses that are engaged, the more permanent the memory. And there's all sorts of research around this, even when it pertains to taking notes, right? If you take notes with a physical pen as opposed to a computer, you're a really fast typist, and so you could just sort of do it verbatim, and not even much of your frontal lobe is involved. If you're having to take notes, you're having to distill down. You're a slow writer. You're having to distill down the concept in order to be able to write it down. You could literally burn the note afterwards and never look at it. And the act of having taken the note helps you remember that thing more. And so the more that you can engage, more parts of your brain that you can engage in an experience, the more permanent that memory will be. So as we look at things like Alice in Wonderland, right? Oh my gosh, what a crazy, wonderful world. Wouldn't it have been fun to live in that world and be able to explore it? And if you haven't tried Gnomes and Goblins, Weaver and Madison Wells, Jon Favreau, it's a beautiful little taste of a world where, very much like Alice in Wonderland, you get to poke around and explore, but being able to really control your experience in there is incredible. And I won't spoil the surprise, but stay there, stay in that world until the thing happens, because it starts to really give you another window into what it would have liked to have been, Alice in Wonderland. Another one I just love is, you remember the scenes, so those reliable scenes in the James Bond movie where the bad guy, straps into the thing that's imminent death, and he's like, here's my master plan. Now I'm going to leave the room, see what you can do. And there's an incredible game from a Shell Games called I Expect You to Die. And you're basically in that situation as the James Bond character about to die, and you need to figure out what to do in order to be able to escape. Really incredible, little tiny snippet of a story that you need to work your way through. A ton of fun. They just launched a new level a couple months ago, so really, really great experience. And when I think about immersion, there's this graph, and on one is scalability, and on the other is immersion. And those two things are kind of at odds. Things that are super scalable are not that immersive, and the things that are really immersive are not that scalable. And so I've got up here just as an example, VR headsets. And something like Google Cardboard and Samsung Gear, a little more scalable. Cardboard's cheap, and it uses your phone. Most people have got a phone. Okay, great, really scalable. But if you've ever worn that gear, it's not that immersive. Most of the time it's just 360 video. There's not a lot of extra control you have over the experience. Now, more immersive, the Vive, Oculus, right now you've got a nice big computer connected to it. You can render the world. You've got controllers, maybe room tracking, really much more immersive. You've got control over this environment, but you had to mount some cameras and you had to mount stuff all over. You really had to take some time to get that level of immersion. So just to really drive this point home, Pokemon Go. Awesome, right? Really, really, really scalable. You can play it from your phone. It overlays on the whole world. Super, super scalable. But the immersion stops at your phone, right? You look through that augmented reality world, and it's only on your phone. On the other end, full body tracking, immersive virtual reality with haptic effects, right? You're in a room, maybe multiplayer, there's heat elements and scent and all these other different things that trigger lots of different aspects of your brain. And that's not that scalable. Someone had to rent a space and set up a lot of stuff and buy thousands of dollars of gear and then figure out how to monetize it and build tons of content. So really incredibly immersive, not that scalable. And so there's a place for both of these things. But I think as we think about new storytelling and where it's going to live, you kind of have to answer that question of just exactly where am I going to live on this continuum, because they're very much interconnected. And some of my biases are going to start to show here, but I love out of home, stuff in public. And for me, there's this period of time when technology comes out of the lab, and before it's ready for the home, that out of home is this ultimate kind of testing ground. It's the Wild West of everybody's living room is a hard thing to plan for. But a room that you can control the environment is a very special place for as the next stop after the lab. I can have a staff member there making sure that you're having a good time and doing it correctly. You can have, you can build the experience around all of the fundamentals that are in that room rather than having to account for all the sort of unknowns that you're going to see in public, or in a living room. So I love out of home and feel like it's a good time for it, especially given the fact that retail is changing so much. And people will say, gosh, well, how does that scale? And the answer is it doesn't. Mostly, there's this term, this concept came especially out of Wikipedia of 1990, and the idea being that there's this tiny percentage of people that are the original creators, and I'm going to use that kind of loosely as it pertains to out-of-home entertainment, in that the people who are actually there to be able to physically see it live is the 1%. And then maybe they're going to video and talk and tweet, and they might have a following of 9% who are going to retweet, and they're going to talk about it, and they're going to share, and they evangelize. And then there's this 90% who are going to follow that action, that activity. And so while that smallest group in physically there live has an impact on the rest of the domain in a really powerful way. So a couple of examples, and this is some of that, folks being able to sort of talk and tweet about the thing that they're seeing drives awareness to the rest of the audience. So Harry Potter is a really great example. You can read the books, you can watch the movies, and you can go to Orlando or Los Angeles and be physically in Diagon Alley, right? You can drink butterbeer, you can put on the cape, you can have a magic wand, and literally the world responds to you. I mean, that is so incredible. Now, there's only a couple of places on planet Earth that you can do that, but for that passionate 1%, they now can really live in that world that they have become so passionate about. Walking Dead fans, there was at Petco Park at Comic-Con years ago, you could literally be in a whole scavenger hunt where you were being chased by zombies, real zombies. And they had UV paint on their fingers, and so you get through this whole freaking crazy obstacle course, and at the end you land in a medical tent. And they would take a UV light and they'd shine it on you, and if you had UV paint on you, they shoot you in the head with a stamp. But I mean, that's really incredible, right? You're not just watching this world, you are part of the world. And I mean, what an incredible way to roll around in that IP and be a part of that experience. Yeah, really, oh my God, I just finally started watching that show. It's crazy. Okay, and then social. This is another one that's super important to us at Two Bit Circus. We're always looking for things to get people together again, break down barriers. We spend so much time on our phones, and social, even mediated social through mobile, is just not as high resolution, right? So much better to do social live in person. And so we spend a lot of time coming up with ways to do that. Escape rooms are an incredible social experience. 6, 10, 12 people all in a room trying to figure out how to get out. We call them story rooms. We think of escape rooms as this subset of this broader category because, frankly, what happens if the story is not about escaping the room? And you want to do something for space? Ours is a spaceship. And we all collaborate to make sure that we don't crash into a planet or explore the galaxy properly. And so we have this episodic adventure where you get to feel what it's like to be on the ship's crew. And there's a great some great virtual reality versions of this, and one on your iPad called Space Team, which is also a ton of fun. So this multiplayer group collaborative experience is super awesome. And then intuitive, and I actually had the word simple on here at first, but I felt like that didn't capture it because things can be complex and more interesting, but too intuitive is really important, especially when you're talking about out of home. Now, you are literally a different person in public than when you're at home. And you're different because you're more comfortable at home, right? You're safe in your environment. You might take time to read the instructions. When you're in public, you might be on a date. You're with a colleague. You've got a beer in your hand. You are just going to have a different tolerance for instructions. On average, you're more violent. The sort of tragedy of the commons, if it's not your stuff, you don't care about it as much. And so in designing an experience, those things end up being super important, both intuitive and, kind of making it missile-proof. So I love this example of Super Mario Brothers and how it evolved from a single screen game to a side scroller to big open worlds. And I don't know about a lot of you guys, I kind of opted out right about here. And because a lot of the stuff got so complicated, it was like, I don't have a whole weekend to read lots of manuals and deal with all this kind of stuff. And just to really drive that point home, the old manual for Atari for playing Pong was literally deposit quarter. Ball will serve automatically. Avoid missing ball for high score, right? You could be blotto out of your mind and pull that off, And, on the flip side, the Mortal Kombat manual, just keeps going. And, it's like all these different things. Look, up and A and left is a flying kick and all this other stuff. It's like, God, how do we remember this? Okay. And then, for me, the most important one is meaningful. And you've got some goal with the story you're going to tell, right? You have some lasting impression you want to leave on your audience. And there is so much great opportunity to use stories to transform people's behavior and really get that message out into the world. And as we talked about earlier, the more that the more senses you can involve, the more you can engage them, the more permanent that memory will be. And if that memory is a beautiful one that is going to help transform people to make the world a better place, become better humans, then wonderful. And so meaningful is really a special aspect here. And if you don't believe me, and you just want to make tons of money, well, that's actually part of the buying patterns now, right? People want, particularly millennials, want people that are doing good things, places that they can align with their morals. A few just quick examples that really resonated with me. There's a play in Los Angeles called Fellowship, a play for volunteers. And this was a really incredible piece where you were going to volunteer at a food bank. And you buy a ticket for this piece, but that was the last time that you felt like you were in theater, because you actually drove to a food bank. And I remember walking up to get my ticket, and I was like, hey, so who wrote this? And they were like, who wrote what? And they're like, yeah, welcome, thanks for volunteering. And I was like, yeah, oh, great, okay. And so I go inside, and all of us are there, and we're making sandwiches, real sandwiches. And over the course of us making these sandwiches, there's this whole performance pieces. They talk about homelessness in LA and what it means, and all the different aspects, and the really entertaining reveal. And it wasn't until we'd made the sandwiches, we'd packed the whole lunch, we decorated the lunches, and they were all packed up and on their way to the food bank, that they were like, that finally all the performers got out, and they bowed, and finally they broke character, and they're like, yeah, great, thanks so much for being a part of this experience. And for me it was like, gosh, was this theater? I mean, we were literally volunteering. The act of having been here was helping to address in a really tiny way the problem that they were telling us about. And then they'd created these evangelists in us to go out and share about this experience we'd had. And it was just such a beautiful combination of of storytelling and action, and really, really special. And then, for me, entertainment is also an incredible prototyping ground for things that can kind of graduate into much more meaningful applications also. And there's lots of examples of VR, AR, immersive entertainment finding its way into really important things. Medical, particularly facing the practitioner, whether they're learning, in a more scalable way, being exposed, into situations that can build more empathy. There's Applied VR is doing an incredible set of experiences for the patient to help reduce pain or discomfort. There's a beautiful thing, a VR piece out of the Alzheimer's research in UK on a walk through dementia, and this is for the people that are caretakers of people with dementia, or the families of people with dementia, to be able to understand and empathize with the situation these people are going through. Really, wow! Now you're able to see from the perspective just the kinds of things that you might not be able to understand. And then, for a long time, Skip Rizzo at USC has been using VR to fix and try to, as a therapy for PTSD, being able to take, war veterans and put them back into the situations that cause so much consternation and angst, and be able to kind of really tease out and get them to re-engage with life in a very positive way. And then this one just happened. Akalai Interactive is making what might be the first FDA-approved video game, where you would literally be able to prescribe this to people. But it's a video game for ADHD. So really fascinating to see that the FDA is about to freaking green light a video game is just so awesome. We got really excited about this space and launched a big traveling carnival. We're a big band of nerds, all trained in what's called STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And for us, we felt like STEM kind of had a branding problem. Like, a lot of people didn't want to be nerds. It's more exciting to be a DJ or a basketball player. But we felt like we had a special, opportunity to help kind of reframe that. I mean, we get to blow stuff up and make big games and all sorts of things that kids could get excited about. So we said, hey, let's throw a big carnival, not not STEM, STEAM, STEM plus art. And after all, for us, right, the art and the creativity, that was the fun, and you learn all the STEM, to support that. And so we called it STEAM Carnival, and the idea was one half high-tech entertainment, and then one half hands-on projects where kids could learn about invention. And so the message was, hey, we built all this stuff, you can too, it's not that hard, here's all the fundamental tools. So we wrote a whole curriculum for teachers, and just a few of the exhibits just for fun. Remember the old dunk tank where you throw a ball and you fall in water? We were like, yeah, water's cool. Fire's awesome. And so we had ours, you throw a ball and you're enveloped in a fireball. You don't die because you're wearing this fire suit. It was so funny because, for the carnival, we were sponsored by IBM and Intel and Autodesk and a fire suit company. And, it was they were like, what? We've never seen anything like this. We're usually for kilns and oil rigs. And so I call up the CEO of the fire suit company on our way up to San Francisco. I'm like, hey, dude, we're so excited. We're bringing the dunk tank up to San Francisco. Hey, do you have those in kid sizes? And he was like, what? No, I don't have them in kid sizes. And I could just see the math in his head being like, oh, I've made a big mistake. What was I thinking? And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. Maybe kids is a bad idea. So we ended up taking that whole program and launching a foundation. It's a full stack replacement for the science fair. We teach kids how to make their own games, and then they learn business throwing their own carnival. So we have the consumable materials, the tools, all the teacher training, and then a whole playbook on how to throw their own event. Okay, a couple things that are coming up next. I know I'm running out of time. Damn it. Okay, so there's a few threads that I think are going to get really exciting. You've probably heard a lot about augmented reality and what's coming there, haptic effects, brain interfaces, and so let me just dive into these really quickly. Axon VR is maybe one of the coolest haptic companies I've seen. They have a glove that can do heat and pressure and all kinds of stuff, but their goal is this, a full haptic suit. This is literally like Ready Player One. And they've already done it for a glove. They're making really good headway on a whole haptic suit that could do, simulate you falling and running and all kinds of different formats. Neurable, this is me literally this Monday with a brain interface on my head. This company is doing it so you could literally detect intention inside of VR, really, really interesting. And then you probably saw this thing, Sophia, the robot AI that just went viral on the internet. It's hilarious. This was maybe my favorite one. Siri on her way to the unemployment office after seeing that video of Sophia. So good. But the part about Sophia and what is an entire discipline at the University of Santa Cruz, computational media, right? Using AI and natural language processing and all sorts of these new technologies in order to personalize the narrative, personalize the entertainment experience, the person you're interacting with. This is customized to you, and those tools allow us to be able to give you that personalization at scale in a way that it can be really expensive otherwise. And for us, we're getting ready to open an amusement park, what we call a micro amusement park. We think of it as kind of a new theater for this immersive stuff. There's not a lot of places to be able to experience this stuff. Think centers like the Phi Centre, and their forward-looking approach for future of storytelling, as Charlie was saying. We need curators out there who are showcasing this stuff, and so we really want to help with that. So we open in Los Angeles. It's a 50,000 square foot facility, although you guys are awesome, you're on the metric system, so 5,000 square meters. Lots of different stuff. Reimagine Carnival Midway, a whole set of interactivity. It's gonna be right in the middle of downtown LA in the Arts District, and we open early next year, which is just a ridiculous timetable. And so for all of you, creators out there, I urge you to play in this medium. And if I was to think about where we are in the evolution, it's like film in the 30s or 20s, where it's still figuring out what this medium looks like and really just need people out there exploring it. Computing in the 70s, right? Nobody knew what a computer was gonna look like. And so we're really at such an early phase of this immersive entertainment. It's such a fun time to be involved in this. Really urge you to go out out and build, immersive, social, intuitive, meaningful experiences. Maybe if you would like out-of-home experiences, I would love that. But yeah, those all, if you hit all those buttons, I think you'd be in really. I would love to go play. Yeah, hopefully this is you. Okay, looking at the world like this kid. I just love what he's up to there. I have no idea what it is, but he's onto something. So this is a great newsletter. Curates a lot of this stuff. New York, LA, San Francisco, and that's it. Thanks so much.